6:30. So, firstly, just welcome, hello, salam, bonjour. My name is Adnan Husain. I'm director of the Muslim Society's Global Perspectives Project. If you don't know about us, you can visit our website, queensu.ca/msgp, and we run all kinds of events, lectures on people's research about contemporary issues in the Middle East, in the Islamic world, Muslim diasporas. We have an event coming up on March 13th that we're sponsoring with a variety of graduate and undergraduate students to screen a new BBC documentary that's very controversial, has been banned in India, and is suppressed on social media. You can't find it on YouTube or Twitter, you can't find clips of it, and it's called The Modi Problem, and it's really about Muslims and the treatment of religious minorities in India as a result of the dominance of the Hindutva movement and in government in particular, and it looks at the history of these relations, particularly through the career of Narendra Modi. So that should be very interesting. That's on March 13th in the evening. So if you want to find out about this and other events that we organize and the discussions, you can join our mailing list and find us on social media and the web. So one of these placards you can screen and sign up to self-enroll. But today I'm really delighted that we have an opportunity for a rather different kind of event, which is to talk about a book with its author. We're very pleased to be able to have Jamal Saeed with us today. He is a writer, an artist, and both fiction and in this case a memoir. He came to Canada from Syria in 2016, and he tells us about his life, so I don't want to go into too much about that, but he's been living in Kingston since then. He published this book, this memoir recently, My Road From Damascus, a memoir. And I'm very much looking forward to this opportunity to have a conversation with you. I so much enjoyed reading this book. It's beautifully written. So welcome, firstly. Thanks for joining us. So I guess it's wonderful to have you. So I guess my first question was just, why did you write this memoir? What did you want to accomplish in it? What motivated you to tell your story?
Okay. Actually, there are more than one reason. The first one that I promised myself many times in prison that I'll tell the others. One of them, actually, I was waiting executing once.
Right.
And after I survived, when I was waiting executed, I think of something. I thought that I'll tell people what the one was waiting to be executed think about. When you are going to face this, what do you think about? The second point, actually, I'd like to write something about the history from below, the history of the Middle East, the history of the houses, the history of the streets, the history of ordinary people, the daily relationships between the merchants, love stories, and so on. The third point, I felt that it's so important to tell even the Syrian people something about the life in Syria. Many Syrian people don't know what's happened, or didn't know what's happened in the prisons, and what kind of prisons we have. The fourth reason, actually, I felt that in some aspects of this book, words to be told for the young people or for the new generation, because it's a kind of sentimental history. It's a history of the soul and the spirit, not only of me, but of many people, and of a specific area. Yeah. You know, sometimes you feel that the place has a specific soul or something. Suppose you bring furniture to your house and you make a quarrel with your wife for the furniture. You haven't enough money and she wants you to bring the furniture. Something, this is hidden inside the furniture. So this is not a table. This is more than a table
with memory.
Yeah, a table with memory, a table with event, a table, yeah. I want to tell the people all these things and remind my readers that they have the same stories. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting that you mentioned also wanting to talk to Syrians about hidden parts of their society and history that were not possible to explain in a broad public manner. But I was interested because you first started, you tell us in the introduction or in the preface, that you first started writing in English. Okay, but then you decided to write in Arabic and have it be translated.
Right.
So if you were deciding to write it in English, who did you imagine as your audience? Did you, or what motivated the choice of the language? I mean, you come to Canada, and you were writing initially in English, but then you had it translated. So what was at stake in the language choice?
Honestly, I felt that I can write this book in Canada, and only in Canada. I couldn't write it in Syria. I don't want to turn back to the prison for writing a book. Yeah. And in Canada, you know, I can't write it. And who is the publisher? Who is going to publish this book? At the very beginning, I think I thought of a publisher in my new homeland, a Canadian publisher or something like that. Then I thought that it will be written in English. There's no Arabic publisher, or at the time I didn't know any Arabic publisher in Canada. Now I know. Yeah, this is the first point. The second point, writing and reading and speaking and hearing English was a kind of challenge for a newcomer. It was a big challenge for me. You know, I was 57 when I came to Canada. And for 57 years, I was speaking and writing, speaking Arabic. Yeah. So actually, it was a kind of challenge. And I discovered that the English I learned before is not the English in Canada. For example, when I came to Kingston, I think that I pronounce it Kingston, not Kingston. Later, all people say Kingston, and so on. Anyway, so this is why I began to write in English. I felt that. And no Arabic publisher may publish the book, I don't know. Yeah. Later, after 3 chapters, I felt that it's easier to express myself in Arabic. Many times, I didn't find the word or the phrase in English. And many times, you know, English in one aspect is idiomatic language. Yes. I didn't find the idiom. I may write a funny thing which may be summarized in an idiom or in few words. This is why I moved to Arabic. At the same time, when I moved to Arabic, I changed my mind. Why I don't publish it in Arabic also, not only in English? So I began to write it in Arabic as if I'm going to publish it in Arabic. Okay. Yeah. And actually, I want to address the Arabic people and the Canadian people. I want to address a human being, regardless the identity, regardless the language, you know. This is why I thought that the English edition will be good for many, many people. You know, English now.
Global language.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, you know, Arabic, the speakers of Arabic, only in the Arab world is about 400 million. I I suppose
only. It's one of the major world languages.
many people speak Arabic in Iran or Turkey, or because of Islam,
That's right.
because of religion or something like that. Anyway, I suppose that one person is reading books. Then many people are going to read books. Maybe some of them read my book. Some of them don't prefer this kind of book. Anyway, so I pushed the English edition to the publisher after having the agent and after knowing the traditions of publishing in the New World.
Oh, you were a publisher.
Yeah, I was publisher.
In Syria. Yeah.
Different traditions. You
Right.
talk about that. And at the same time, after I finished, I edited the Arabic edition. I read it again, and actually I sent it to two publishers. Unfortunately, one of them was in London, UK. It's Assapi, yes, exactly, Assapi publishing house, but he closed.
Yeah.
He stopped publishing.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately. The other one is in Beirut, and he's still, about a month ago, he told me that we have a lot of book fairs in the Arab world. I may tell you something in 2 or 3 months. I said, okay. And I'm still waiting.
Right. Okay, well, I hope that it will.
So do I.
Yes, that would be great, I think. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, maybe we can turn to the book with the things that you cover itself. I just wanted to ask you a little bit, if you could tell people a little bit about what Syria was like in your childhood and youth. I think people would be not that familiar, especially with that era.
Yeah.
Almost nobody from the West traveled to Syria during that time. I remember when I went to study Arabic in Damascus in 1993, there were almost no foreigners who came. In fact, actually, it was difficult for me to get a visa, and it only had recently been removed from the U.S. restricted list to travel, so there wasn't very much. So not a lot of people know very much or have a kind of experience. You don't have tourists, and you don't have those kinds of informal ways in which people get to know at least something about another society. So Syria in the 80s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, very unknown to people, I think, in the West. So it would be interesting how would you characterize your experience with Syria and your youth?
Yeah. Actually, I didn't write in the book that my name is Jamal after the name of Jamal Abdel Nasser. You say the first military dictator in the area, and the man who had a specific project and big dreams.
Yeah.
And people, loved him at the time. But actually, he didn't do what another dictator in the first decade of last century do. I mean Kemal Atatürk, who laid the basis of a civil country or secular country. And up till now they have a kind of parliament. Anyway, when I was 8 years old, I saw the people gathered near the radio. It was a kind of war in the Middle East. It's called in Arabic June War, in English the 6 Days War. Yeah. And at the time, actually I know only my village, and there were no war in my village. And I astonished why people gather together and hear the radio every now and then. In the village, all are farmers. They leave the work and listen to the radio. What are they doing? And later, the first time I had seen tears on the face of my grandfather, he cried. Why did he cry? He said that we are defeated. Who are we? Yeah. This is from my childhood. And later,
This is the 1967.
yes, this is 1967. A year later, people began to speak about Ernesto Che Guevara in my village. It's in the north of Chile. Who's this man? And why did people speak about him? Yeah. I felt that he's a hero, like our heroes. The heroes in our stories, in our fables, like Antara and the Seer and something like that.
And that of him, which
Yeah,
more viewers
yeah.
should read that one.
So there were a funny thing in many on many walls. The verse of Al-Kursi from the Quran and the photo of Ernesto Che Guevara.
Wow.
Yes, people put them together. Yeah.
This is a very famous
Yes.
verse
Yeah.
used in a lot of prayers
Yes.
and things from
Yeah.
the Quran. Yeah.
So, and in some places, you know, in a lot of houses, you will find Al-Khudr or Saint John killing the dragon.
Right, right.
Yeah,
George
but
W.
for us, for the Muslims, he is Al-Khudr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what is that? Yeah, I was confused when I was a child with these pictures. Everyone from one place. Yeah, this is something. The other thing, I remember that we were hungry. In 1968, there were no wheat, no flour, and many times, you know, some aids from international organizations, UN or something like that, comes to our country. And the first time I hear the name of Canada was when a bag of flour, it was very good one, yeah, better than the other bags.
Okay.
Yeah, and people say that this is Canadian. And many ladies made a kind of underwears for their children, for their kids, from these bags. Yeah.
It
And
was good fabric.
yeah, and then my mom made many jokes. Yeah, she made jokes of poverty, of our situation, and said, okay, your shirt is Canadian.
What are you complaining about? It's from, you know, sure.
Yeah. The third thing I remember that actually people were afraid from policy. After 1968, my uncle told me, do whatever you want, but don't gamble and don't have hashish, a kind of marijuana, and don't say anything, don't involve in policy.
Politics.
And politics,
Yes.
yes. Yes. Don't say any word about the government. Just obey. Yes. This is the third point. I remember it from my childhood. When we were young people, you know, I was young after the coup of Hafiz al-Assad, the father of the current president. Actually, two things happened. The first thing, you know, the war of 1973.
Yes.
Yeah. The Arabs at the time said that, okay, we overcome our enemy or something like that. The other thing, the dictators, the military officers, you know, captured the authority in many countries. One of them was Syria, in Syria and Libya and Egypt and Yemen, Iraq, and it was a stable dictatorship for a long time. We have dictators before, for 3 years or 4 years. Another dictator made a coup and so on. And we know democracy in Syria only for 4 years. From 1954 to 1958, when Nasser came and, you know, the unity between Syria and Egypt took place. Yes, yes. But later, in the 70s, this is one point, the dictators were stable and governed strongly. The other point, after the war, you know, the oil of the Gulf came, you know, income of the oil actually became very, very, very great. So they funded the countries around Palestine and Israel. They funded them, and some money came, and we don't feel hungry. So when I opposed the dictatorship of Hafiz al-Assad, the Mukhabarat, the secret police, asked me, now you fill your stomach and you can say something against the regime? Because actually something happened at the time. Saudi Arabia funded the Middle East countries, and you know, at the time, it was the only time when Saudi Arabia stopped providing oil to some countries in the West.
Right.
Yeah.
The embargo,
Yeah.
the OPEC embargo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The third thing actually at the time, you know,
Just quickly on that, the food situation. So is this the period when there was subsidies? Because, you know, there have been for a long period of time subsidies for basic staples, bread, right, as a subsidized price. Is that when they started to come in?
Yes.
I see, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The third one at the time, actually, my generation grew up, and in his mind, the two wars. So the Palestinian issue, the issue of Palestine. How to solve this issue? There's always a war. And then, you know, at the time, there are many, many organizations in the Arab world, especially from the Palestinian people, were established, like Public Front. And in general, it was the last wave of the left, all over the world, not only in the Middle East. But, you know, at the time, in Paris, something happened in the Sorbonne University for students, and they expressed, at the time, they were left. Even if they know nothing about left, but they were left. They put the photos of Mao Zedong and Marx and Lenin and something like that, and Guevara. And even the clothes in Paris at the time were the beret of Guevara or the jacket of Mao Zedong, a special jacket or something like that. And many people put a sign, a communist sign on their jackets. In Europe, the other people, you know, Santiago Carrillo said, bye-bye the dictatorship of proletariat. But he was communist. In Syria, we have a former communist, but at the time, a new left or a new communist grew up. They were against Soviet Union. And in general, they say in general, there were a famous joke that Brezhnev told his mom, look, this is my car, and this is my building, and this is the car of my son, and so on. Then his mom told him, don't say that, the communists may take everything. Yeah, this was the attitude of the Soviet Union and the communist countries from the new left. But up till now, there is a former left who think that Putin is a kind of expand of the Soviet Union and support him.
Right.
But
you mean like the government during this time, like the Assad regime, it would characterize itself as socialist, it was pro-Soviet, so you're talking about a left that was in opposition to this regime that was considered or like to identify itself as a socialist regime.
Yeah. Actually, when I was 17, I left my village. I was at the time from I joined an organization called Labor, Communist, Opposed Conjunction, or League, yes.
Communist Labor League.
Communist Labor League, yeah. At the time, we were knights, we were dreamers, we were poets, and maybe few of us were kind of prophets, but we were not political people at all. We don't think about how to achieve our goals according to a pragmatic way. We know that this is a dictatorship and it should be fought. That's all. We were against the regime, while other communists who were, they actually moved in the Soviet Union circle. Yes, they supported the regime. They were with the regime, but we were against the regime. Not only us, many others from different ideologies, national, like the regime, communists, Muslims, Muslim brothers, and different
tendencies and orientations
yes.
that were opposing the regime.
Yeah. So now I feel that I told you the main things about my childhood and about the time when I was young. This is in the 70s. In the 80s, I lived only the year 1980 outside the prison. The other 80s were in the prison. So in 1980, something happened in Syria. There were a kind of conflict between the regime, the dictatorship or military dictatorship or regime, whatever you want, in one hand, and the Muslim brother or the pioneer. They called them the pioneer of Muslim brother, and for me, they are a kind of fanatic Muslims with guns, and they actually commit a kind of massacre against the candidates of officers just because they are alive. They killed about 83 one. The regime did more, destroyed cities.
Yeah,
Hama. I was in prison actually when the regime destroyed Hama. Yeah, but at the time, the regime arrested a lot of people. And sometimes, suppose your brother is from the Muslim brothers,
right.
They arrest you.
Also,
yeah. And nobody of the family can find a job or whatever. They were a kind of a very bad siege from the regime against people or against the opposition, especially those who had guns at the time, or who fired the regime. This is the last year before getting in prison. At the time, I was underground. I was hiding because they raided my house, my family house in Latakia, but I was in Damascus. My father sent somebody and told me, get away, don't go to the prison. And I lived underground for about less than 3 years. Then I was arrested. Yeah. Before arresting, what I can tell something. I visited Aleppo once. I have actually secret pamphlets at the time.
Distributing, right.
And we want to do something at the time. We wanted to change the world. Yeah. Young people, 17 and 18 years old. And they think that it's easy to change the world. I was one of those. And then in Aleppo, I walked in Baron Street in Aleppo. And suddenly, I find that there's a soldier every 5 meters with a gun. And I have a bag full of pamphlets. What's to be done? I found that there's a barber, but the barber half opened the door, not opened it like that. I said, okay, I'll get to the barber. Put the bag and I get to the barber and asked him to shave my beard. It was shaved. I asked him to cut my hair, just to give myself a chance to think what's to be done. And every now and then, the boy who works in the barber, they talk and say, oh, they hit that man. Oh, they take that man and put him in a car. And I began to feel,
he was watching what was happening on the street.
Yes, watching what's happening in the street, of course. And I decide to leave the bag and go to the street. I get to the street, the boy, follow me, your bag. It was a miracle to survive. I survived it, but actually by a miracle. I don't know Aleppo well, and I get to some street else, and there were no cell phone to know where to go and where's the station. I moved about 3 hours in the streets. I don't know where I am. But I could get rid of the bag at some place. Yeah. Actually, it was a kind of washing room in a kind of bar. Yeah. Yeah. The people, the faces of the people, actually were horrible. Yeah, it's a horror. Unbelievable. I'm still remembering how the eyes were opened and people try to, like me, try to escape somewhere. Yeah, I don't forget that.
Yeah.
After that, 1 month,
Yeah.
I was arrested.
Yes. Well, you do talk a lot in this book about your experiences
Yes.
in prison,
Yeah.
in very moving and deeply affecting ways. It's very disturbing, and so I don't want you to have to talk more about those specific painful and traumatic experiences. People want to find out. You can read the book and understand, but I was curious to ask about the writing about them, remembering and retelling them in written form in this memoir, whether it changed anything for you in relationship to those experiences. Was it helpful? Was it, or was it very painful to relive them and write about them? I mean, so I just wondered about that aspect of talking about such things and why you wanted to share those. Obviously, you wanted people to know and really understand what has been happening in Syria, but from you, from a personal level, did the process of writing about these things change your relationship to those memories?
Well, actually, most chapters of this book were written in College Street in Kingston, and all things you asked about were happening. Sometimes, after finishing a chapter about torture, I felt that I get rid of something heavy in my soul, and I slept deeply, as if I worked all the time in breaking rocks. Yes, I feel, wow, I want to sleep. Sometimes I moved in the streets like a mad, a crazy man. I get from College Street to the lake, walking fast. Sorry. Near the lake, I feel that I want to howl, like a wounded wolf, and to get rid of something it reminded me. I don't want to remember, but I have to remember. At the time, and sometimes actually I feel that as if I am speaking about another person, as if I am watching myself as another man, and make joke about him or about myself now, as if we are two. Many situations, many cases, many feelings. I had many feelings actually. Sometimes comfortable, sometimes, and very, very hard sometimes. But at the end, I felt that it was good. I actually, there's something in Freud's theory, or in the way of healing somebody from a kind of trauma. It's just tell the others about it. Speak about it. Yeah. And peaceful. In one hand was a kind of healing, and in one hand was a kind of, you know, waking up a kind of pain inside me. Yeah. At the end, many times actually, I have something like the religious people in general have to pray in some way or to remind themselves of some verse from the Bible or from the Quran or from whatever. I always told myself, life will smile. This is one point. The second point, don't be like them. You are not going to take revenge. You are against them. So, you know, there's a proverb called something like that. If you fight the beasts, don't be a beast. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That you transform into what you
Yes, exactly.
Go to that level.
Yeah, I hope that I answered you.
Yes.
But I read all these cases, all these things. Yes.
All the different.
Yes,
different responses.
Sometimes I slept and sometimes I hoped.
Yeah. Well, after you came out of prison after 12 years, you had to rebuild your life and begin to find some way of being back in the world. And you got into publishing, and you also wrote short stories. And it seems from your telling that there was a very vibrant intellectual culture in certain ways, despite the kind of suppression and political foreclosure of certain kinds of open political engagement. And I thought that was an interesting period. And I know that there was also some periods where there might have been some greater opening. What was the intellectual culture, intellectual and literary culture of that era? Basically, it's like the 1990s, 1990s and 2000s.
Yes.
How would you characterize the scene intellectually and culturally?
Yeah. Actually, in the 70s, the left was a kind of majority between the intellectuals, the writers, the readers, the drama, the cinema. And all over the world, we attended Pasolini, we attended Costa Gavras, we attended, and we attended works for movie makers from the Arab world. In general, they were in the left side. Later, what's happened? After the collapse of Soviet Union and after the collapse, for the new left, all of them were arrested and killed, even if they are fanatic or not, like Bader-Meinhof and the Red Banners.
Right, Red Brigade.
And even if they don't use a kind of violence or do anything, if they are not terrorists, do nothing against the governments, like us and the others in Egypt and in the other, all of them were arrested for a long time, and suddenly there's no politics. At the time, the Islamic Revolution of Iran, captured the country of Iran and make a kind of government. And the Islamic wave rise up. The 80s and 90s. And they began from Syria to Abu Sayyaf in Filipino, to different places all over the world. I am speaking about the fanatic, not about the moderate Muslims or the moderate Christians.
The kind of political
political
that were against the regime.
Yeah, so Syria was part of the world where the Islamic wave rised up.
But it was much earlier than a lot of the other ones.
Of course, they were. But at the same time, when Hafiz al-Assad put him in the prison, he wanted to make a kind of negotiate with the community, with the society. So he made a series of schools to keep hard the Quran. معاهد الأسد لتحفيظ القرآن الكريم.
Yes.
It's as every mosque there is a school for Islamic clergymen.
Right.
Yes, and there's a students who will keep the Quran by heart, memorize the Quran.
Right.
This is by Hafiz, was done by Hafiz, and its name, Hafiz al-Asad School.
Right.
In one hand, he put them in the prison, and in the other, he, negotiate, do something for them. So, in the publishing and intellectual and the lot changed. Now, if you go to the book fair, what are you going to find?
Religious books.
Islamic books. Many people. Suppose you are going to sell William Faulkner. Few copies of William Faulkner may be sold. Or Brzezinski, suppose. Or somebody, Bertolt Brecht. Whatever. Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie, it's impossible to sell one copy. Because, after Al-Khomeini,
after the satanic
or many Muslims, after the satanic verses, became against Rushdie, even if they don't read the satanic verses. Now, suppose not Salman Rushdie, others. Nobody with anything, and they don't say anything about Islam or religion. Barker, the UK novelist who had many awards, you may sell 50 copies, something like that. In the 80s and 70s, publishers printed, suppose, the Diary of Bolivia by Ernesto Che Guevara. They published 5,000 books. Later, they may publish 100 copies only. But the books of cooking, Islamic books of horoscope, we call it?
Yes, horoscopes.
Yes. Wow. They published thousands, 10,000, 20,000.
That's interesting because every kiosk, for example, when I would go, like in the Middle East in the 2000s, you see Ibn Sirin's interpretation of dreams, right? So a medieval text about dream interpretation. What did you see in your dream?
Right.
So you're saying that there was this kind of turn towards astrology.
Great example, great example. It helps me to say that in the 70s, the book of Interpreting the Dream by Sigmund Freud sold thousands of books. In the 90s, the interpretation of Ibn Sirin said thousands of books, but not Freud.
I mean, they're both interesting, I'll say that.
Yeah, this is a great example. Actually shows the situation of people. So I actually asked a lot of authors, and I found in many book fairs that young people buy three things. A book about computer programs, a book about English language, how to speak English well, and some Islamic book about Islamic person. And Syria, we have a lot of sects in Syria. The church actually made a lot of, more than usual, a lot of ceremonies and meetings and something like that. Before 1980, we were Syrians first, and then Muslim, Sunni, Alawite, Shia, Christian, whatever. Later, after 1980, we don't say that we are Muslims first, but we were. We don't say we are Christians first, but we were. The ID now is a religious ID. It was before that a kind of national ID. This is the difference between the two areas. And many, many people, even in Lebanon, you know, in Lebanon, at the very beginning, when the war began between Lebanon and Israel, a front of national parties were communists and Syrian nationalists and Baas, and make a kind of a front again. And they, when Israel invaded Lebanon, and you know, later it was Islamic resistance by Hezbollah or something like that.
Yes.
So a kind of fascism began to establish in the Middle East. And actually, for example, many people in different places find themselves between a leon from this side, leon means a and a leopard from the other. So, if you escape from the military dictatorship, you are not going to escape from the fanatic militias. This is the problem of the Middle East after, you know, in the 90s, not so much militias, you know, but actually, we smell them.
They're starting up.
Yes, we smell them. For example, there's a mosque called Zayd bin Sabit. You may know him in Damascus. It's in the main street in Damascus. When I get to Damascus in 1977, I walk in front of that mosque, I find about 5 old people inside the mosque. After 80, the people who are in front of the mosque, because the mosque is full of it, I think that it's enough for about 400 people. But the people, there's no place, no room inside. The people began to in front of the mosque. This is one of the differences of the development of what's happened in the Middle East and in Syria. And I had seen that in my own time. One thing in Damascus University, when I was in a publishing house, at the same time I was studying English literature in Damascus University. I visited the university in 1977 for the first time in auditorium number 4, and I sat at a corner, and as a young man, I looked at girls. I scanned the place and tried to find the girls. About 10 girls, the auditorium is enough for about 200 students. About 10 girls looks as if they came from Paris yesterday. The way of, you know, of combing the hair and dressing and a special look. Most girls were without hijab, but you know, in unordinary clothes. They look as if they belong to the middle class. In nowadays, like me, t-shirt and some jeans and something like that. And about 5 to 10 girls with hijab. This is in 77. After I was released, I turned back to the university. Actually, I attended 3 or 4 lectures only because I had to work. Anyway, I get to the same auditorium in 1992. The 10 girls who came from Paris yesterday are still as they are. You can find 10 girls who came, and about 80 girls with hijab, and 5 girls like me, with jeans and t-shirts. This is indicate what's happening. Many girls who have hijab actually don't want to put the hijab, but it is a kind of idea at the time. And many times the not fathers, the neighborhood, the quarter, obligate people for some behavior, especially the young people. You know, young girls in general don't like that. Don't like to show that we are beautiful, and I think so. I'm not sure.
So what you mean is that there was of social and cultural transformation in society, and that, you know, when you grew up, and this is kind of well known, and like, you know, when you watch a film from Egypt has like the largest film industry in the world. You look at a film from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, you know, you think, well, is this in Greece, or is this, you know, I mean, basically everyone's wearing Western things, a shirt and tie, a jacket, and, you know, that was their vision of modernity, of being modern, and it's very surprising to see that it was that kind of, at least a kind of public secular identity. In the 80s, you know, this does shift. 80s, 90s, 2000s. You know, there's more conservative, religious, traditional, you know, identity. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and the dictatorship pushed people to, you know, to escape to God, to escape to religion, to escape to something like that. Actually, the dictatorship did that.
right.
Push people in this direction. Then you can't do nothing. Then you will ask God to help you. You can't do nothing in your country.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so. And I don't feel oldly. I had seen that in my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you point out these shifts and changes, and of course, you know, what happens in Syria in the 2010s, of course, is the rise of movements of opposition that then are suppressed and leads to you know, civil war in the country. And under those conditions, of course, the opposition is overwhelmed by, you know, kind of radical, you know, jihadist type of groups, and so you have a situation where people who didn't necessarily subscribe to an extreme radical vision, but you know, still wanted political changes and so on, were kind of caught in a very difficult situation. And of course, as we know, many forced millions to leave the country. You came to Canada. I just wondered, you know, you spend a lot of time talking about those years in the memoir, obviously. And I just wondered how you would want to, you know, is your sort of main kind of message to people about what happened in Syrian society, quite apart from this larger cultural you know, kind of transformation that takes place, but you know, what was your personal experience of these years and your kind of main message about it that you wanted to communicate?
Actually, after I gave up, I don't interest in policy. I'm interested in my family and in my study in the universities. My publishing house try to write something in a fake name as an article, but every now and then, and send it to everybody. When the uprising began in Syria, I felt that we have opportunity to change the country from a dictatorship to a kind of a secular or state of law. A state, Syria will be for all the Syrians. And I dreamt at the time, one day I find a lady and as a president in Syria. And I'd like that she is from the, you know, before Islam came to Syria, we have a kind, up till now they are in Syria, Athors or, yeah. I dreamt that an Athor lady will be a president in Syria. That means I dreamt that we have a secular or state of law that gives a chance to everybody, or there's a kind of equality between people. Not because they are equal, but they have the same chances. All people from all sects, from all, and I actually think that, you know, believer, non-believer, all sects will respect each other and live with each other. Exactly as in Thanksgiving Day in Canada, I believe believer and unbeliever and different people. Drink that one and have a turkey, and, you know. Yeah. And I like that, our country. And I felt that now it's opportunity. And I was so enthusiastic. I left everything and we began to work as much as we can to support the revolution against the regime. After 2 years, actually after 1 year and a half, I felt that, you know, what is going on is a kind of civil war between sects. And now we lost the opportunity. We didn't have any opportunity anymore. But I tried my best, me and my wife and my friends, to help the displaced people from one city to another or from one quarter to another in Damascus. And we thought that the humanitarian attitude now is the good attitude. Yeah. Later, when my wife and my 2 kids were almost kidnapped, I decided to depart. I want actually to make them to survive for the 2 boys. Yeah. If I have any message or letter to the people, there's only one solution in Syria. There's no. This solution is a kind of a democracy, a state of law, secular country, and in this case, nobody is going to take revenge of the other. And actually, we need a kind of justice. Yeah. I'd like to watch or to see in Syria what's happened in South Africa. It's a kind of, you know, rebuilding the community in some way. This is what I hope. This is my hope now. Yeah. But I think that it needs a time. It's not in 2 or 4 or 5 years. But I think people knew everything now and discover what's happened, and they began to build a new ideas about their future. I'm so sorry and so sad for what's happened in the last 10 days. Actually, the earthquake was a kind of a break the broken hearts, break the broken country, and break the broken houses. Yeah, yeah. It was very, very sad. Yeah. Anyway, it shows something. This earthquake, the last earthquake, shows that people became better in some way. Actually, they try to cooperate as much as they can, but they have nothing. They haven't tools to take the rubble, they haven't money, they haven't food. But the one who have a roof gave half of the roof to his neighbor, and that was great in Syria. Yeah, I contact many friends, and actually I cried because things are great, emotions are very, very high.
Yeah. Well, we've had thank you so much for these reflections. The book has so many other insights and thoughts about your experiences, but I thought maybe we should open it up and see if other people have questions, comments, things they would like to hear you discuss. So why don't we open it up? Gordon?
Thanks, Jamal. I just wanted to ask you a question that I once had you in my classroom, and you showed us your art. You're not just an author, you're also an artist. And you've done watercolors, but you've also worked, I think, in another medium that you learned in prison. You tell about how you did art in prison? You made, I think, chessboards? Yes. Matches?
Yeah.
Are you willing to?
Yeah, actually in prison, one not to lose his mind. in my mind not to lose it. How? I made a kind of chest. At the very beginning, I arranged small stones that I had in the soup. I write words by the small rocks. I was isolated in a
Maybe
very...
you should just tell them that it's lentil soup.
Yes, it's lentil soup
And
yes.
I sat with my grandmother, the same in Turkey. You get the lentils and you have to pick out
the rocks from the lentils.
that are in,
Yes.
mixed in before you make the soup. But
Right.
in prison, they didn't bother
Yeah.
Ah.
to clean the lentils.
Okay, yeah.
And so,
Clean them and this, right.
so your soup had all these little tiny stones.
Right.
Okay.
Right, because they bring it from the farmer immediately.
Right from,
There's a lot of small rocks in it. I arrange them, write the name of the girl I love, write the name of my grandpa, try to make a tree or a bird or whatever. Later, I made a chest from the bread. The black pieces, I made the black pieces by mixing the bread with a kind of ash of the cigarette. Then I began to play with myself. I were two players, I was two players, audience, and the one who comments in every movement, and the one who discussed. I was the winner, I was the loser. So I was many people in one. And many times I tried to play the role of the loser or the winner and make a discuss between them. One of them make jokes of the other, make fun of him. And actually after, suppose half an hour, I began to think that, yes, I lost my mind, not to lose it. That was very important, to forget that I am in a cell and I am isolated. And it is very narrow. It was about 90 centimeters by 1 meter 80. I don't know how many feet or how many, here things are measured by feet.
So about 3 feet, almost 3
3
feet
feet
wide,
wide, yes.
and 6 feet.
Yes,
It's like
and about 6 feet high.
6 feet high.
Yes. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, something that, well, I don't know if it's a question, but it's probably most a comment. But your history moved me a lot. You know, because I'm from Chile, and this is the 50th commemoration. It's not anniversary. It's the commemoration. Sorry, about the commemoration of the coup in Chile. And with Pinochet, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And part of your story is the story that I read and I know from family about terrible stuff like torture, prison, the problem to express your ideas. I remember, like, I was super young, I was a kid. At the end of the dictatorship period in the 1989 and 80, with the plebiscite, because we have a plebiscite that is the idea of the Pinochet to clean these 17 years, you know. And at that moment, like, I remember that I was super scared about the police. And I remember that I was in my home and the police came to my house with a big gun. You know, the police never used big guns, they used like pistols, something like that, and they tried to keep the pistol like really quiet. But well, the guy was like with a kind of big gun. And I saw that, I was like 6 or 7 years. And 7 years old. And was impressive for me. So until today, I'm afraid of the police. It's like if I go close to the police, I start to feel something. Like it's really tricky for me. I start to sweat, and then I get nervous when I try to speak with them. So for example, if I get a ticket for my car, it's like they go close to me and I try to, I don't know, something happened there. And it's really traumatic in some way. So when I try to say this, because I think the experience to live in a dictatorship period is something that even from kids like me, that I'm not involved in any political situation, is something that could be traumatic. And I'm thinking, like in the case of you, that you participate in the resistance, you know, how that worked for you?
Well, first, actually, when you were near the fire, you're afraid of it more than when you are inside it. We were inside the fire, but you watch it. You had seen it. This is the first. The second point, of course, we had a lot of things in our life after prison. When you were in prison, it's difficult, but it's more difficult when you get out and think that you may get back to the prison. Exactly, like poverty, like being hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get back to prison anyway, but I get back two times. Yeah, this is the point. The second point, the second aspect, actually I spent about 2 years challenging myself. Suppose I am walking on the walk side, and there's a military police. I spent the worst years in prison, in a military prison, and the military police were in that place. I felt that I afraid, but I continued. I didn't move to the other walk side. But really, my heart began to move quickly. When I came back to the university for the first time, you know, it's a formal building. I afraid of the formal buildings. I felt that I afraid. But I obligate myself. Even if you're afraid, you have to get there. And I get there. I spent about 2 years like that. One of the most intellectual Syrians, who is Adnan Husain, who works in the Ministry of Culture, asked me to visit him. Actually, I felt afraid that he's a good man, very, very good man. And his mentality is great, open mind, and you know. But it was not easy to get in a formal building. The formal buildings in Syria, in every formal building there's a picture of the president and some saying of the president written and put in the wall or outside. By chance, the Ministry of Culture put the same saying I had seen in the prison of the military prison. The same saying. I remember it. I can translate like that. No life in this country but to progressive and socialism. لا حياة في هذا القطب إلا للتقدم والاشتراكية.
Yeah, you translated it perfectly.
Yes.
No life other than progress and socialism.
Yes. President حافظ الأسد. You find it in the prison and in the Ministry of Culture. The same thing. And, later, in 2011, when the revolution began in Syria, I was so enthusiastic, that's right. But I was so afraid, especially because I have experience. I know how to bring bread to some place and don't show anything. Nobody is going to discover what I'm doing. I can help the people in my own way. My wife was so enthusiastic. She wanted to show that we are with the revolution. And this makes a lot of problems. I was so afraid. I told her more than 10 times, you don't know the prison. I know it well. So don't show. do whatever you want, but don't show the others. Don't, yes. So now, you know, I don't know what kind of trauma I had. Nobody knows. But nobody told me that up till now that I'm crazy or mad or whatever. Some dreams and nightmares up till now, I had some nightmares, but actually every year or every 2 years. It's about specific phases of jailers who tortured us in a very, very bad way. Yeah. Anyway, I'm ordinary, no?
No, yeah, I understand. It's like,
Yeah.
I have some family who was in prison and was tortured in Chile.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure, it's like a traumatic moment of your life. It's like, it's difficult to erase that in some way.
I read something, and I attend a movie about Santiago, and actually I read some works by Pablo Neruda and by, I think her name, the name of the president was Salvador Allende.
Salvador
And
Allende,
she
yeah.
is Isabel Allende. Yes,
Isabel Allende, okay.
Yeah. Isabel wrote something important, especially the 3 fingers that cut and sent to the grandfather who was supporting Pinochet. But, you know, the granddaughter was not supporting Pinochet, was against him. Then they cut her fingers and sent them to her grandma. I read something. I read something about Victor Jara, I think.
Yeah.
They cut
The
his
hands.
fingers in the stadium.
Yeah, well,
And about
it's terrible.
90,000 people were imprisoned in the stadium, something like that.
Yeah, in the national stadium, it's the soccer. Well, it's a football. It's a soccer stadium in Chile, like the national place. Yeah, that was a prison, and they torture also in the locker rooms. Yeah.
Los Govras made a great film. It's raining over Santiago.
Yeah.
It's raining over Santiago.
Is that the
Something
name
like
of
that.
it?
It's very good. Huh?
Is that the title of it?
Yes, I think. Yes, it's raining over Santiago. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Actually, I know the Arabic title, and I translate it. This is a translation of the Arabic title.
What is the Arabic title?
Yeah.
What is?
إنها تمطر فوق سانتياغو.
How does it feel like living in Kingston, the prison capital of Canada? I remember when, is that the building opposite to Frontenac Mall, or what's the other mall, I don't know. Very magnificent building with fort-like, castle-like actually, with this conic red towers at the past by it.
That's
On the
Collins
bus.
Bay. Collins Bay.
Yes,
prison.
I thought it must be a museum or something, or maybe some government office or something. I thought, wow, what a magnificent place. Is it open to visit or something? And somebody told me it's prison.
Yeah.
What? So, anyway, does it feel traumatic living in Kingston, the echoes of your past having an art? Like,
No.
have you had a chance to compare what's the
I had hearing aid, but I didn't hear well.
She was asking about
Yes.
Kingston is the prison capital of
Yes.
Canada.
Yes?
And so she was asking if that affected you to be living in Kingston.
Yeah.
Because this is a place that has many prisons actually in Kingston.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I visited a prison. It's a kind of museum now, I think.
Yeah.
It's another prison. And I visited it and I compared in my mind between the cell in the prisons in Syria and this prison. Actually, I had seen the other one. Somebody told me, that this is a prison. And I thought at the very beginning there's a prison in every city, in every place. But later I know that there's a prison here. Anyway, actually I didn't decide to come to Kingston. My sponsors, they are writers, the community of writers in Kingston, sent me an email through PEN Canada, and PEN Canada contact ICORN, it's an organization in Norway, and they sent me that, would you like to come to Kingston? You know, at the time I don't know where's Kingston actually. Honestly, I don't know that there's a Kingston in Canada. But
You thought it was Jamaica.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if it's not better.
And then after I knew the conditions, I agreed. The first thing for my two sons. I was in Dubai at the time, and actually we don't know anything about our future. Dubai is sleeping under the feet of any newcomer. Suddenly they may ask you to depart, and you don't know where to depart. In Dubai, actually, Dubai is a great city, modern city, international, global, whatever you want. But Dubai changed people like you change your shoes or your socks. Change people, change firms and companies. And if you lose your work, your job in Dubai, then you'll be in the street, without food, without place, without... This is, I was so afraid, not for myself, but for the two boys. They were teenagers at the time. So, I felt that it's a great opportunity to come to Canada. Because, you know, they can continue their education, and they did. And they are now good. And that's all. This is my project now. Not to change the world, to go up the two words, and maybe to change my jacket.
Any other comments, questions?
Just a comment and a question. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
It was very interesting and devastating for myself that I really don't know so much about the part of the world you're from. I think you mentioned for the 1980s in your biography that it's the comments something very important that is, I think from my personal perspective, still important until today, and that's this humanitarian approach in the neighborhoods. I think solidarity, besides any political project, ideology, and so on, is a very strong weapon, and sometimes we forget about this, how strong it is. So this is, I'm originally from Germany, this is what we can see when it comes to the Ukraine, and this war, this is what people in Moscow, what Vladimir Putin didn't expect, that people in a very poor country, or a comparatively poor country like Poland, accepted refugees, and showed this kind of solidarity, and so on. So this is just a comment. I can see this, and I share it totally. If you, the question I have is a little bit more focused on this migration story in your family biography. So you, at some point, you decided to leave the country. If you want to disclose this, can you speak a little bit more about your children and their, I don't know, perspective on Syria and a future of Syria and how this resonates with themselves? So I'm asking this bit because I'm interested as a historian. I'm interested in migration history and in generations, but especially in age. And what we can see is, from a historical perspective, so adults very often make some kind of decisions, and then they are in this kind of in-transit and transitory situations, but even more the growing up a generation is in this transitory situation in a very different way. So that's why I was asking. So you, and I think the question is coming from some remarks you made about the future of Syria. So is this something your children discuss, think about, and what are their, I don't know, perspectives and maybe contradictory to your ideas? I don't know.
Actually, they departed Syria when they were about 14 and 12. And yes, 14 and 12. They departed to Dubai. In Dubai, they were in international school. And when they came to Canada, actually their English was not bad. So they go on in the schools of Canada, and they have a kind of open mind. They look for me now as international people, cosmopolitan people. I'm Syrian, Syrian Canadian, suppose, but they are cosmopolitan in some way. They have girlfriends. One of the older have a girlfriend. Her father is from China and her mother is from United States, and they are living in Canada. The other one have a girlfriend from Kingston, and they are living as the people of Canada living. And I accept that. And I love the girls like my daughter. They are my daughters out of law now, but they will be my daughters in law. I'd like that they will be my daughters in law. The two boys work hard in Canada. One of them could have a scholarship for 4 years in the University of Toronto. The other one could have the prestigious scholarship in Canada, which is Laurent Scholarship. So I love them, I respect them, I respect their choices. One of them wanted to study a kind of engineering. In the Middle East we love medicine science. We would like our sons to be doctors. Yes, all of them should be doctors. Yeah. The younger is studying health science and works well. And actually, they have a very, very nice Canadian experience. The good thing that they don't have any kind of problems, or they don't feel that they are strange. They live with Syrian people and with people from everywhere. I love that their friends are from everywhere, from India, from Pakistan, from Syria, from England, from China. And when they visit us, I feel I feel that, wow, they grow up and they are young now and they bring their friends. When I went to Toronto, there were a kind of festival, and I do something, I talk about the book. It's a festival for the writers, something like that. The two boys came with their friends to the theater, and I felt that I'm supported by the two boys. I love that so much. For us, for me and my wife, actually we have problems. Up till now, we don't communicate well with the community. First, because of the language. Second, because of the habits. Third, because we're afraid. We want to be polite, and we're afraid that we do something wrong with the others. You know? What are the traditions? How did people deal here? In Syria, it's very, very easy to knock at the door. What are you doing? I'm waiting. Okay, I'm going to do. That's all. In Canada,
Yeah, that's
okay,
true.
what about meeting in
Yeah.
May?
Yeah.
True story.
That's right.
After 3 months.
Next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a schedule here.
Yeah.
That's true. That's happening in
After
Chile
3
too.
months,
It's like you
said
go to the
that
home.
you are going to have
That's
dinner.
it.
Yeah.
You forget after 3 months. This is the difference. You see, and actually, many, many times we'd like. Now my wife and I are in the house. We'd like somebody to knock the door and say good evening. You know, drink coffee together. Say that, wow, your Turkish coffee is good. Yeah. So, traditions, habits are different. And as I told somebody else, I feel that I'm not a seed to be planted in Canada. I'm a tree that picked out of its soil, out of its sun, out of its air, and brought to a new soil, a new air, a new everything. Yeah? But the boys looks like a seeds. They grow up in the snow. I couldn't.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So do you miss Syria?
Miss Syria?
Yeah.
Of course. I miss the apricot, the fig, the walls, the streets, the stones, the forests, the rivers, everything in Syria. I know it well. There's a strong relation between me, even the prisons. In every street of Damascus, I have a story. So, yes, I miss Syria so much. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel that the earth is a good place for people. Yeah. You know, you miss your house maybe in Kingston. When you move from one house to another, you said, okay, we did so and so at that place. Yeah. So?
Well, you include some photos of scenes of Damascus, the
Right.
citadel,
Right.
other places, and one when I saw, I said, "Oh, I miss this place."
You,
Because
huh?
it was.
You was a student.
I was a student in Damascus, yeah, in the 1990s, early 1990s, and this one, the stairs behind the Umayyad Mosque, Jamal Saeed.
Exactly.
Right.
No further.
No fun.
Exactly.
I went
Exactly.
there. I would go there frequently, and on like Tuesday night or Wednesday night, there would be a rawi.
Hakawat.
Hakawat.
Hakawat is storyteller.
Yeah.
The storyteller tells every year 2 stories. Yeah. And actually like a series of TV.
Yeah.
He sat on a table, put a chair on the table, and tell the story. And many, many times he represents, or actually he acts as if he is the character. Yeah. And every day at evening between Salat al-Maghrib and Salat al-Isha.
Yes.
He tells the stories, and up to now,
Still?
yes,
Oh,
it is still. Yeah, because many people came because
it became famous that
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
find this are medieval Arabic epic
Yeah.
stories,
yes,
like Sirat Anta.
Syria, Antara,
So you mentioned that one before,
Yeah.
these like old kind of heroic ballads and epics. So it's like the Song of Roland or
Yeah.
something like that. And it's oral and it's huge. It's like a huge story. And they can make up digressions, sub-adventures. It's like a choose your own. He looks and sees, are people interested? No, they're not. Okay, I'll move to a different one of these stories. But they really like this. Okay, I'm going to go with this one. And then so it's an oral form where it's the performance.
Yes, right.
You know, it's an oral performance, and the narrator, he's acting out. He's on the, and then he sort of, you know, may be the person he's speaking with, and so it's like what medieval entertainment was, and they kept it alive. And that, I have to say, reading your book and all of these memories within Syria, just you know, it was such a. I thought of it as a real pure Arabic culture, you know, traditional Arabic culture, not like Lebanon and so open to so many other influences, and you know, North African, a lot of North African countries, so many tourists, and you know, Syria for me was just this represented a traditional Arabic country, even in modernity, but they kept some of these kinds of traditions, and so you know, one wonders. I'm happy to hear that it's still up until recently was happening.
Yeah.
Because one wonders how much of that fabric of that system
because of TV, all the storytellers, there were a storyteller in every couple.
Yeah.
Now, just in Damascus, I think there are more than 3,000 scoffers. But there's a storyteller only in one. And there's a joke about him. Once, Hunter is a hero. And he's a black man. He's in love with Abla. Abla is not black, but she is his cousin. So, but Abla's father don't want to, in our culture we call it, give the girl to the boy.
Right. And he has to earn.
Yes.
He's trying to prove I'm worthy.
Yeah. Anyway, Antar is fighting and fighting and fighting and make many miracles to marry Abla. People sympathize with Antar. One day, the storyteller stopped at a point when Antar was in jail, arrested and put in jail. And then, you know, the Mu'addin asked for the Asha prayer.
So
The fifth prayer in the day, the last one.
So you have to stop.
Yes. And then, Hunter is in prison and people get the prayer. Everybody get to his house. One man come to the storyteller and ask him, please release Hunter.
Let him out.
I can't sleep. I can't sleep if I
Well, I mentioned the other one, that Ohima, which is the one about the warrior princess. So parts of it have been translated. So, you know, it's actually, is it this week?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's tomorrow.
Next.
Well, next month.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's a graduate course that's dealing with a translation of Sira that Ohima. You know, and they talk about it. She's a female warrior who, you know, has the same kinds of adventures as this incredible fighter.
Yes.
And, you know, saves Byzantium from the Crusaders.
His name is?
Yeah.
Saif bin Ziyazan.
That's a different one. Yeah.
Oh.
He's a different hero. This is a female hero, heroine.
Ah, heroine.
Yeah, yeah.
The name again?
That Ohima.
That in Hirma. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
So that's been translated. People should check it out. It's really exciting. It's exciting. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? If not, please
Come on.
have some cake, have some coffee, cookies. You know, there's a lot of it here. But before you do that, look for, if you haven't signed up, you know, we're going to have another event on the Modi problem and Islamophobia in India, and you know, that's on March 13th. Everybody's welcome to come to the student-led discussion and screening of the film. But before you come and have some refreshments, please join me again in thanking
informally, you can talk